Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. You're still on Daybreak on Trust TV. We'll be getting right into this discussion segment, and today we'll be turning our focus to a critical topic, which is the state of the nation, with a deep dive into the growing regional tensions and the humanitarian responses that follows in their wake. Across Nigeria, concerns are rising over the deepening fractures along regional, ethnic and religious lines, from the persistent banditry and insurgency in parts of the northwest and northeast to the growing separatist agitations in the southeast and the clashes over land and identity in parts of the north central. The nation is facing mounting pressures that test the limits of our unity. Just recently, renewed violence displaced hundreds in parts of Plateau, Kaduna and Benue states, adding to the already staggering number of internally displaced persons. Now, according to aid agencies, over 3 million Nigerians are currently displaced, with many living in overcrowded and under-resourced IDP camps, relying heavily on humanitarian aid. On the humanitarian front, both local and international organizations, including NEMA, the Red Cross and Médecins Sans Frontières, continue to provide critical support. But with resources stretched thin and access limited by insecurity, the question remains, is the Nigerian state doing enough to address the root causes of these crises, not just the consequences? To help us unpack these complex issues, we are joined by two distinguished voices: Dr. Suleiman Suleiman, former chairman of the editorial board of Daily Trust newspapers, and a respected political thinker, and Iliyasu Gadu, a veteran journalist and public affairs commentator with decades of insight into Nigeria's evolving political landscape. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning. It is an absolute pleasure to have you both here.
Good morning. Same here too, you know.
Good morning. We're glad to have you join us today.
Good morning.
All right, so today we'll begin by asking, how did we get here? And more importantly, how do we move forward? We have seen the devastation that is still ongoing in Nigeria, in different parts of the country as well. And the question always on everyone's lips is, why isn't a proactive measure being taken? And when it comes to, humanitarian affairs, there are lots of displaced people that are not getting enough aid and security as well. So we'll start with you, Dr. Suleiman. How did we get here and how do we move forward?
That's a very big question. Because I think we all know how we got here. And if we were to just use one word, we'll say neglect. We got here because certain things that are important for a state, and society to put front and center were not put front and center. And the implications, the impacts are what we are seeing everywhere now. I was having a discussion with my friend lately, and I was saying that the road from Abuja to Kano, is a road I've been plying for at least 35 years, since I was a very young kid. But up till now, I can't see any difference on that road. It looks the same to me. Each time I'm going there, it looks the same. The communities remain the same. The road itself probably even getting worse. There hasn't been any changes. So if progress is measured by physical landscape alone, then we would changes in the physical landscape alone, we would say that there hasn't been much progress. Elsewhere around the world, maybe during that for countries aspiring to develop, maybe during that time, you will have had 3 or 4 more new towns or even new cities in between these spaces. We haven't seen that. But one change has been the increase in population. So every town you go, after 5 years, you see visible indications that the population of this town has grown. So if population has grown and means of livelihood, physical infrastructure and other things have not grown, what would you expect? What you expect is what we have now, crisis everywhere. all these things that we see, banditry, even the insurgency, the IPOB and all these things around the country, they're all, in a way, people trying to say, I also want to be part of this. I want to belong. I want to belong. Some in a misguided, violent way, which shouldn't be taken lightly, but you should still understand the motivations sometimes behind even that misguidance, as such. So I would say that neglect, progressive neglect over years, and not just any particular government, but all governments, and not just governments, but also society as well. I think that is part of why we are here.
All right.
As to what we need to do to get there, that's a different thing, and I'm sure
All right. Well, I would move to a particular situation. As a veteran journalist and a public affairs commentator with decades under your belt, I would like to ask, you've seen a lot of things that have gone on, especially when it comes to violences and, communal clashes. We've had one in Benue State, it's going on in Plateau State as well, in Kaduna State as well. So in your own opinion, Iliyasu Gadu, what do you think are the root causes of all of this?
Well, as Dr. Suleiman said, over the past decades, we as a country have not faced the reality of the need for development as a spur for human progress. And development is about a mindset. If you need to develop, you know what to do, you know how to do it, and you know how to approach it. We have, tended to, stay within the comfort zones of lamentation, of trying to say, look, trying to think in our mindset that development is not for us. And our leaders are not challenged in that respect to say, look, hey, we found ourselves in this situation. We need to move to the next, and we need to, we need to be able to, take all the measures. And development is about, letting go of certain cultures, certain practices that we have become comfortable in, which in themselves provide us with a kind of false comfort, but which does not actually help us to spur. There are lots of countries that at the time of our independence were not even as much as developed as Nigeria then, as it was then. Nigeria, in terms of a number of things, agriculture, a number of things, we were far. In terms of even industrial development, for instance, I'll give you an example. The Nigerian arms industry, was far ahead of was 2 years before the Brazilian, Embraer, which produced Tucano jets, which is now an aerospace concern. It has gone beyond just producing aircraft. It has gone to producing aerospace. The Nigerian DICON, which is a Defense Industry Corporation of Nigeria, which was set up in Kaduna, was set up 2 years before Embraer, which was set up in 1964. Now, Embraer, we have to go to Embraer to look for Tucano jets. So it's about a mindset of development. What we need to do, what practices that we have to adopt, and some practices we have to, jettison, in order to put ourselves on that. And these are things that have happened in several countries. Even the European countries are today, and the Chinese and have had to say, look, thus far we are going to, jettison this. We are going to move this. We are going to move in this perspective, and we are going to make everybody do. Now, since we have not been able to take those on board, so the people, the stress of lack of taking people on board, people are looking for ways by which to, as he said, belong, and they do it in negative ways. And unless we challenge people to development, he says he has been traveling between Kano, Kaduna, and Abuja. I have been doing that too because I schooled in Kano. I know I've not seen commensurate development, but I've been to countries, for instance, that within that space of time had galloped in terms of. I'll give an example. In 1986, I was in Turkey. The level of development between Turkey and Nigeria was just, that. But you go to Turkey today, that's 1986, mark you go to Turkey today. It is a cutting edge, society that has gone far, raced ahead of Nigeria. In 1986, there was no metro in Istanbul, the city of Istanbul, no metro. But today, there's a huge airport, one of the largest airport in Europe. There's a lot of development in Turkey, and the same thing in other countries in Africa. So it's a mindset. Our people have come to the realization that development is not, certain aspirations is not ours, and that we must learn to be able to stay in lamentation and to give ourselves the comfort that, look, we can only go so far. The way the Nigerian people are, we have the capacity, the potential to go even to the top 5 countries in the world. Because all the indices are there, all the resources are there. It is about the mindset, it's about the thinking, it's about the aspirations, which we don't have.
All right.
So now you talked about how, still on Mr. Iliyasu, you talked about how we can achieve great things as Nigerians, and our government can help achieve great things. So now how do you think the government can promote greater understanding and cooperation among different regions in Nigeria?
Well, as I said again, it's about aspiration. You cannot get to where you want to go if you do not aspire and work towards that aspiration. It starts from the mind. It starts from the mindset. If you look at your society, you look at the things that you commission a study, a baseline study, realistically. I'm not talking about grandstanding studies. I'm talking about realistic. Look, we want to have, for instance, there is no reason why between Kaduna, or rather, between Abuja and Kano, there are no high-speed trains. There is no reason, absolutely no reason. There is resources, there is money, there is expertise, and there are people around the world that can help us. China,
absolutely.
Turkey, and the rest of them. Brazil, all of them. It's about our development priorities. And there is no reason why we cannot have, conurbation areas around Abuja, in Nasarawa, Plateau, Kaduna, that can integrate into a big conurbations. This is a function of thinking, it's a function of aspiration, and it's a function of putting people behind the plow so that we can actually get things done. Agriculture, you travel from here to Kano, or you travel from here to Jos, you see fallow land, left undeveloped, no agriculture. And this is a country that can go to any part of the world, any country in the world, and say we want this for the next 15 years, and we'll get the development aid. Real development aid, not fake development aid. And we'll get it. We'll put our people to plow. There's no reason by 8 o'clock in this town, in this city, everybody has disappeared from the city. We need to, if you go to other countries, by 12 o'clock in the midnight, people are still working. But a great deal of the manpower is asleep when they should be doing a lot of things. If you travel, for instance, to Dubai, at 12 midnight, your plane arrives, you see people working. The ethic of work. We don't develop it. We think, development is also about from this to that. It's about around the clock. It's about thinking. It's about aspiration. It's about saying, I want to go to the moon, or I want to go to the sun. If you end up in the moon, fine. But you must aspire. You must not lament. You must not say, oh, this is not for me. You must. Then the world will take you seriously. Look at what happened with the girls in Morocco. It's about aspiration. Yes, we are down 2-0, but they never gave up. And of course, you get the rewards for that. But here we believe that no, we want other people to think for us. We want to go to IMF to think about how we can develop. They tell us what to do. The people who are working in IMF, the people who are doing those things are Nigerians, are not even better than the economists here. Go to Europe, most of the GPs in London that attend to our sick or gas are Nigerians. So why can't you provide for them? Go to NASA. One of the girls that played for Nigeria is a molecular biologist with NASA. So there are lots of Nigerians all over the world. Commit them, give them the enabling environment. Within 5 years, Nigerians, I don't see a reason why we just waste our manpower. We waste a lot of things. Look at China. They use the manpower they had to develop those things and to create that condition for takeoff. Today, we are celebrating them. Why are we would like to claim that we have 230 million people, but how are we engaging the 230 million people?
All right. So let's move to Dr. Suleiman. As he mentioned, he said Nigerians, I would say, that are comfortable in being underdeveloped. But then...
so to speak.
But then... right now, we've heard that the ACF Arewa Consultative Forum have complained that the federal government have neglected the North. What do you think about that statement? And is it a true fact that indeed the federal government has neglected the North when it comes to federal infrastructure and anything that comes with it?
That's a very tricky question, because first of all, in general, I don't believe in this regional, squabbles between Nigerians, because she asked him, what are the causes of the regional tensions that we have and how can we get ahead of them. The truth is that on the one hand, Nigerians don't really have any problems with each other, frankly. You find that this house, Daily Trust TV, you see people drawn from all parts of the country, some from the south, some from southeast, southwest, right, and northern Nigeria. And you work together and you put a show. Everybody does their job, what they are supposed to do, and then the program is fine. Nigerians live together up to now we still live in compounds. Do you realize that? That up to now we still live in compounds, just like we did 60, 70 years ago. It's just that nowadays the compounds have apartment blocks inside. So it is quite possible that my next door neighbor is from Plateau, the next one is from Ebonyi, and the next one is people don't have much problems with each other in these spaces at workplace. People go to the market and shop. You have customers. Not all of them are from the same region or speak the same tongue or have the same faith, religious faith as yourself. So at a social level, Nigerians don't have any regional issues with each other. The problem is these energies. How do we collect these energies and build, one nation? As you said, aspire towards one nation at the political level. It is only at the political level, when you are talking politics, that somebody reminds me that, no, I'm not just your neighbor, even though you are from Ebonyi State or you are from Ekiti State, but I am also a northerner, and you are Yoruba or Southwest, and you are Igbo, and so on and so forth. It's only when we come to politics that we do this. But at the level of, individual relationships at work, in the street, in school, you remember you went to school, you had friends, you didn't feel any much, at that individual kind of thing. So the problem has been that skill, that statecraft, the ability to bring people together. And what it needs is just some level of fairness. That, okay, we have 200 billion US dollars. Or is it 343 billion they say now? So this is the GDP. You look at it, okay, maybe this GDP, 70% of it comes from one part of the country. So it doesn't mean that you should take all of that and then distribute around. The question is a challenge. How do we build the other parts in a way that they too can grow, can get ahead as well, to the extent of their abilities and the extent of their own resources, So it is that kind of fairness that we have not been able to devise. What has been the case is always to how do we share the existing cake rather than how do we make the cake bigger, so that if the cake is bigger, then everyone can have enough. So and which is what he talks about aspiration towards development, going to the moon. If you get to the moon, then everyone will have something. themselves, you know. But if all your aim, all your ambition is to capture power so that you can use the cake available rather than to expand it, you know, the cake available to benefit yourself and those closest to you, then you are going to have feelings and tensions at that regional level. So what the Arewa ACF people said, I don't know how to put it. In a way, they're right, you know, because we have all seen that many developments that have gone to southern Nigeria, but really, I haven't seen much that has happened, you know, throughout the past 2 years in particular, to say that any particular region is being sidelined or any particular region is being favored. You know, what I see is government saying, I will do this, I will do this, I will do this, I will do this, but not being able to do it well to the extent that people can actually see results around. If you say you want to build road from Calabar to Lagos, I understand you don't have, you know, you want to build road from Calabar to Lagos. If you build that road, and 2 years is long, that is long enough time to go to complete that road. I can assure you it's long enough time to complete that road, you know, and if not complete, at least to go more than half. If people can see that you have done that, you know, even if you have not been able to do it around Maiduguri or around Kano, at least you have done something. But that one too is not there at all, you know. So I think that's fueling this.
All right,
feelings.
thank you so much. Mr. Iliyasu, let me move to, as he said, what the federal government is supposed to do. Let's talk about, you know, humanitarian aid and, you know, the people displaced when it comes to the devastation going on when it comes to banditry, insurgency, and you know, communal clashes. There are lots of people that are displaced, and most of the time we would see that we are waiting for foreign humanitarian aid organizations to come and save Nigerians. Or what do you think the federal government can do in making sure that people that are displaced are taken care of and, you know, put on a straight or narrow path?
Okay, before I answer that question, I want to maybe, you know,
top off on what
on the ACF.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think if there's any sidelining being done on the north, it's been done by northerners.
All right.
Yeah, and I'm being frank about it, because if you look at when we talk about the north, we're talking about the 19 states of the north. It used to be one region. And during the time that, you know, the north was one region, there was a development plan, you know, plan for north, agriculture, industry, education, health provision, and it was followed. It was devised by Ahmadu Bello, the regional premier, and there were people tasked towards developing it. I mean, it was carrying out those development plan, implementing it. Top people, conscientious people who were really, really committed, and he was driving it. And then, of course, unfortunately, and that is how, for instance, within a short time, because the North was handicapped, you know, handicapped in terms of all these areas, maybe agriculture, perhaps, maybe, but in terms of all these areas, the North was handicapped. And Sadona came with his team and said, this is what we need. Some of the people who benefited were people who didn't even know. He would go to a village and say, look, hey, we have this program. We want to have doctors. I know, for instance, in Jos, when I was growing up, there was a certain gentleman called Dr. Alex Fong. He said Sadona came to the Plateau State, and he was looking for young men to take, and said, look, hey, so come here. He took him, and then there was and before you know, he became a doctor, and he became one of the very best doctors. All over northern Nigeria was like that. He was implemented without any favor to himself. For instance, if you were in today's northern Nigeria, he would cite that Ahmadu Bello in Sokoto or somewhere in Zamfara or Ikebi. But he cited it in Zara, where every part, the development will spread.
Which is like the center of northern Nigeria.
Exactly. And it was also a center of learning in the old days. So there was this approach to development.
Enabling environment.
And they lived the development, objective. Because there was nothing, you had to pull your socks off. All the civil servants that they had then. And when unfortunately he died, the development plan could have been implemented in the other states. Kano actually took it up. Audubako took it up. And for some time, Kano was the go-to town, city. It was in fact almost rivaling Lagos. In terms of development, economic development, you had Sharada, you had scientific education, you had quite a lot of things happening in Kano. And they took, because Audubako took the development model of Sardauna and implemented it in Kano. And that is what at that time made Kano the go-to place.
So right now, how have Northerners, should I say, disappointed or let down the North when it comes to those developments?
Yeah, because at the time, what happened was that the vast influx, or rather, of money from the center, money from oil sales, because shortly after the Civil War, we had, or during the Civil War, we had, you know, the vast expansion of the oil industry, and Nigeria was getting a lot of money. In fact, it got to a point whereby the head of state, then Gowon, was saying Nigeria's problem was not
money,
but how to spend it.
Yes.
You could imagine what that meant. So it now started the process of people saying, look, you know, there's money to be made easily. People who were, you know, were modest in their living, and you know what, now found themselves as civil servants in some places awash with money. And that is what now, you know, derailed some of the development plans that we had in the north. And then subsequently it fed on itself. And then that's what we have today. And these are things that I said that can be reversed. Because, you know, you can never be better than your manpower. The manpower is the main thing. The people are the main focus. In most countries, the focus of development is the people. If you now develop how to make the individual to become, to harness that talent that he has or she has, you could have a lot of productivity, you could improve your GDP and all that. That is the focus of development. Not to sit down and say, I'm going to construct a road from here to Kano, and you bring foreign people to do it so that you can get the kickbacks.
So the mindset has to be changed.
Most of the railway we had were built by Nigerians under the supervision of the white men, colonialists. It was built by that. That's how you came to have the influx of Southerners in the other parts of the north, because they came here to build the railways. Azikiwe was born in 1912 in Zungeru, Niger State. 1912. Imagine, he was the son of railway workers. The same thing with Ojuku and many others, because the development, it was development plan based on development. Listen, now what we have is so many people have made so much money and neglected the manpower, the people. And so the people have now been left to eke out a living of themselves. They are not there's nothing to, you know, make them the focus of development. So they now look for self-help. And what you have now is a situation whereby, you know, the elites who are supposed to drive the development do not think about development. They think about, you know, getting aid, you know, development aid, which itself comes at a cost, because nobody will give you development aid without, you know, consequences. And that is what is happening in those countries. You, as I said, those countries have taken development as a front burner, as a focal point. You could see that development itself fits its way. And there's something I want to say: the price of underdevelopment is greater than the price of development.
Absolutely.
So, because if you want to remain underdeveloped, that's how you won't have power, you won't have energy, you won't be able to even harness your people. And for instance, I was in a project that was being a multi-billion-dollar project that we had to go and look for Filipinos to come and be the welders, for God's sake. Well, our people could do it.
Wow.
Ahmadu Bello University was, the roads we had in those days were built by our people. Even the roads that all the big companies are using today are built by our people with the supervision of the foreigners. So we could do it. But it's about harnessing the people. It's about driving the development project, driving the development model and prospects.
All right.
Okay.
Even
If
though
I may
you
add to what he said, because you mentioned Sardauna.
Okay, 2 minutes.
Okay.
Because of time.
Thank you. I feel like part of the reason is the value system. Sardauna, first and foremost, he loved his people. He loved the people that he was leading. There's no love between northern governors now and their people. Maybe they can claim
Distant.
so or say so.
There's no connection.
But there's no connection.
Distant,
there's no, yes, there's that separation entirely. Sadona used to visit primary schools to see what's going on there. For a governor to go to a primary school now, he will feel like he is too big for that. But you're not too big for it, because that's part of what you agreed to do. That's part of leadership.
Your responsibility.
Second, Sadona's leadership had a purpose. He was not Northern Premier just for the sake of being Premier, or so that people will say Rankadede. As we now have governors, people, Mahmoud Jega, former columnist here, he once said that a governor once told him to give him a plan for governing. After he has become governor, he didn't have that plan for what to do before he became governor. Let me...
All right, yes.
Thank you
All right,
very
then. It was a great pleasure to have you here, Dr. Suleiman, and Mr. Iliyasu Gadu. It was absolutely... It's always not enough time for us to talk about Nigeria and what bothers yes, in Nigeria. Thank you so much for being here,
Thank you very
as
much.
Always. All right. That is all we have for this segment. Make sure you stay with us for the next segment. We'll be reviewing the front page of our national dailies, and we'll see what made it there. We'll be right back.